Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Krown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! For a bit of context, a few years ago I was part of a swim team at a public pool. The pool was divided into 4 sections: the shallow end, the recreational pool, the deep end, and a lap swim area. The recreational pool was split into 2 ends: the free swim on the deep end and the aerobic swim on the shallow end. It was summer right before sports tryouts for my brother and me. Part of the tryouts involved treading water for 20 minutes and then putting on a life jacket in the middle of the water. To practice, we went to the free swim end of the recreational pool to avoid touching the ground. On the other end of the pool, there was an aerobics class going on. Before we went in, we got explicit permission from the lifeguards on duty to do our training there. This aerobics class just happened to have an old lady whom we will call Karen in it, and she was eyeing us. Since the tryouts were in a river with tons of weeds and waves, we thought it would be best to mimic the conditions by using my swim cap to splash water on each other to create waves. We were splashing each other and timing ourselves to ensure we could do it for long enough. We also had each other put on goggles since we didn't have any life jackets. In that situation, goggles are equally as hard to put on while treading. On the side of the pool, there was an area where you could borrow goggles if you didn't have any, so I took one from there. We were in the middle of doing this for my brother when Karen approached. She started floating over to our side of the pool with her big blue floaty and gray hair. At first, we didn't pay much mind, but as she got closer to my brother, we politely asked her to go back to her side with her aerobics class. "Miss, could you please move back to the other side of the pool? We're training here and we don't want to get you splashed."
"I'm allowed to be here. This is a free side of the pool. It's my right to be here. It's not like you own the pool."
"Well, that's true, but we just don't want to accidentally splash you."
"I'm staying. This is just as much my pool as it is yours."
Since she was technically right, we moved closer to the wall to avoid splashing her. I went back to training with my brother and she continued to move closer, along with another lady from her aerobics class. We tried not to pay any mind to them, but they kept moving closer. By now, they were maybe 3 feet away from us and we were about a foot or 2 away from the wall, so we couldn't move much further without craning our limbs against it. So, I asked him, "Could you two please go back to the side reserved for aerobics? We don't want to splash you."
"We aren't touching you. There is plenty of space for you to move. Why don't you leave us alone?"
Might I remind you that we were practically touching the wall at this point? Current me would have told her off right then and there, but I was only 9 at the time and my coach was within earshot, so I didn't want to say anything to get myself in trouble. "You're not touching us, but you're invading our space. You two have the whole other side of the pool to swim, but we only have these few feet, so please move."
"No, this isn't your pool, and you have no right to be telling us to move."
At this point, I was fed up and just wanted to finish training with my brother, so I ignored her and went back to training. While I was dumping water on my brother, a single drop flew out and splashed Karen and she flipped.
"Lifeguard! Lifeguard! Help!"
She cried out, making a scene, waving her hands and glaring at us. The lifeguard rushed over thinking someone was drowning or something.
"This girl is trying to drown this boy and us, and she tried stealing goggles."
The lifeguard looked at me holding my swim cap that was now empty of water, then looked at my brother trying to put on goggles from the borrow me bin, and then looked at Karen and her friend who had just gone underwater to make it look like I tried to drown them. "Sorry, miss, but I'm going to need you to leave," the lifeguard told me. "But it's not true, sir. My brother and I were just training." I tried to explain.
"Liar, get out of here. We can't have her in here. She might go after the kids next."
Karen, of course, couldn't stay quiet. Seriously, it was 1 drop of water. Yeah, I might have been playing a bit rough with my brother, but he had no problems with it. It was Karen's fault that she got wet after we asked her to move twice. "I'm going to need you to put your things away and leave this section of the pool, miss." As I was being escorted to the locker room, I looked back and gave Karen and her friend a glare. I saw my brother getting out of the pool. The next thing I know, he was jumping in, doing a full-blown cannonball next to them, drenching them in water. I was trying to contain my laughter as he got out, put the goggles back, and scurried back to the locker rooms, all while Karen and her friend were screaming at us. Serves them right. At the time, I was working 2 jobs and staying with my sister. It was my sister's place, so she could do as she pleased when it came to having animals. She had taken in a female cocker spaniel named Mercy and her puppy, who was 5 years old. She got the dogs from her friend with the agreement that if the dogs did not work out, she would take them back. Mercy and her puppy were purebred, a product of breeding within the family. I have never agreed with anyone who breeds animals that seem to think it is a good idea to enforce breeding within the family. The result is a purebred animal with medical and mental problems. It was obvious that Mercy and her puppy were the product of several generations of breeding within the family due to their behavior. My sister had just acquired the dogs and immediately they were using the inside of the house as a toilet. What was weird is that all meals were timed, and they were fed twice a day at specific times when specific amounts of their individual weight and age. And they were fed twice a day at specific times with specific amounts for their individual weight and age. You could take them out and walk them for 2 hours, and I kid you not, the second they were brought inside, they would relieve themselves. My sister finally decided to put the dogs on an enclosed porch to better control their bathroom training. The porch was huge and she had a large dog house for them to stay in for shelter. It was nice because if they did have an accident, it was easy to clean. This was in the middle of spring and she would have them out there during the day. It did not get cold where we live and she was hoping to break them out of the habit of relieving themselves all over the house. When my sister got off work, the dogs were brought inside and monitored, and our dad would come by and help too, since he had nothing better to do. Plus, my sister would hook him up with his favorite coffee and cake. The routine was the dogs would eat in the morning, be taken for a good 30-minute walk, and then put on a porch for 5 hours. My sister would come home for lunch and repeat the process, hoping to break the bad habit. Food and water were restricted to get them to relieve themselves outside. The entitled neighbor across the street would stare and shake his head like this was the most horrible thing he ever saw. A week later, I was on my way to work when I saw an animal control vehicle plugging me in. I saw the door open and this short, overweight woman with thick glasses approached the porch. I came out. "Can I help you?" "Yes, I just received a complaint about animal abuse going on here." "Excuse me? I don't know what you're talking about." "Really? Then why are those 2 dogs being left on your porch?" The animal control lady decided to go inside the porch without permission and saw Mercy and her puppy chilling out in the doghouse, chewing on toys. They were not chained and were free to move around the enclosed porch. "Look at this. This is cruel. Dogs that are kept outside require access to food and water at all times. First, these animals have been fed and watered. Second, both dogs are not chained. Third, I believe you are referring to livestock. And last, if that is a law, then I need you to show me where we are required to do so. I could take these animals right now." First, these animals are in the middle of potty training, which is why they are kept on this porch during the day for a few hours and then brought in at night. Second, you're trespassing. You need to leave now. Before she could say anything, my dad pulled up as he lived down the street from my sister. My dad got out and ripped the animal control lady a new one. The best part was, imagine Christopher Walken with a huge biker beard angry. Yes, that is who my dad sounds like. And he chased the animal control lady back into her vehicle with his words. "I've had it with you. Get the heck out of here now. I'm gonna be talking to your boss. You have a lot of nerve." I finally got to work late and my dad took care of informing my sister of what happened. The animal control officer supervisor knew my dad and apologized for the incident. He confirmed that what we were doing was 100% legal and allowed. There was no harm done to the dogs in any way, and my sister was trying to get them trained. Animal control would not be bothering us in the future. The dogs were left, and our entitled neighbor was horrified that animal control did not do anything. It was kind of obvious with the nasty scowling stares from him and his wife. 2 days passed and my sister came home to find that the dogs were gone. Someone took them and she was extremely upset. She was sure that the entitled neighbor had taken them but could not prove it. About 5 days went by and magically the dogs were sitting there on the porch like they had never left. We saw the entitled neighbor and his wife, who seemed to have a troll face, arguing with a carpet cleaning company about the dog mess inside their house. It sounded like the two did not bother to clean up the mess and expected the cleaner to do it, who refused. I remember the cleaner telling them they needed to remove the mess and he would be more than happy to clean the carpet. My dad and I could not stop laughing because we found out that the dogs destroyed the carpets in the neighbor's house. The two must have given them access to food and water all the time. And what goes in must come out. The dogs did not seem to have an off switch when it came to water and food. You had to limit them or they would puke, relieve themselves, and make a mess all over the place. They had all their shots, no parasites, and we think they were not tried due to the inbreeding. My sister eventually gave up and returned the dogs to her friend. It seemed that no matter what we did to try and train them to go outside, nothing worked. Oh, and my sister had a professional carpet shampoo machine, so the carpets were kept very clean. The last straw was Mercy refusing to walk on a lead and biting my sister, drawing blood. We think the entitled neighbor must have done something, but the dogs were not right in the head. Mercy also became aggressive with her puppy, and we had to separate them. A friend ended up taking them back, and they were kept on a farm, which worked better for the dogs. Here's where it gets good. The neighbor and his troll-faced wife showed up at my sister's door demanding she pay for damages done to their carpet. First, they called animal control about the dogs, then decided to steal the dogs and now wanted my sister to pay for the damage done. Nope, not happening, and my dad told him to get lost. You're gonna pay for this. Look at what your dogs did. She showed us pictures of a literal mess. It was nasty. What the heck is wrong with you? You two are thieves. You better get out now. He took the garden hose and sprayed the two of them off the property while yelling at them. Yeah, you like that, thief? They ran back to the house and stayed away. For the next year, they kept shooting dirty looks at us. For the most part, they left us alone. So I'm disabled, deaf, chronically ill, immunosuppressed, have muscle and joint weakness, and I'm a fainting risk, and so on. I wear hearing aids, use a walking stick, and frequently have to sit down wherever I stand to ensure I don't hurt myself. So obviously I tend to have a hard time dealing with people generally, but this entitled mother I met today takes the cake for the worst encounter I have ever had. I was sitting in a train station minding my own business with maybe 10 other people on a platform, including the entitled mother and her child. The train was delayed by almost half an hour, so obviously people were irritable. It was raining, there was no entertainment, and the train station still requires masks to be worn, which is annoying for everyone but important nonetheless. So yeah, no one is having fun. As mentioned above, I'm deaf, so I wasn't really paying much attention to the people around me, and I only had one hearing aid, so I could listen to music with an earphone in the other ear. It wasn't until I saw something face plant into the ground in front of me that I even paid attention. A child lay face down at my feet, crying loud enough that my hearing aid was somewhat picking it up. And suddenly there was a woman screaming in my face. I explained to her that I'm deaf. I also have pins on my jacket and bag that say the same thing. And it took several minutes of her shouting before she pulled down her mask. And the conversation went as follows. You tripped up my kid. I did no such thing. She pointed at my walking stick, which was propped up against the wall, out of the way, and hasn't moved since I put it there. No one tripped over my walking stick. It's against the wall. No way your kid fell over it. Are you calling me a liar? I just watched my kid run over there and trip over your stupid walking stick. She then went on a mini rant about how entitled we teens are, I'm 21, and how we have no respect for our elders, accusing them of lying, and how dare I pretend to be disabled. I'm quite used to hearing this, so I just let her go on, while her kid decided to stop crying now that it's no longer getting attention, and continued to chase pigeons around the platform. Some people looked at us, but if anyone said anything to the entitled mother, then I didn't hear them. "Why is your child running around on a platform?" I asked when she finished. "Because he's bored. We've been waiting for half an hour and he has nothing to do." "Still, he shouldn't be running around the platform. It's dangerous." "Don't tell me how to parent my child." I assumed that would be the end of the conversation, seeing as she had already yelled at me and her child was no longer upset. So I went to put my earphone in, and of course, that was a wrong thing to do. "Give my son your earphones if you're so concerned about him running around." I wanted to tell her that I don't really care about her child, but she would certainly be upset if he face-planted the ground again and fell in front of the train. However, I just told her that no, I would not be giving her my earphones. I went to put the earphone back in, this time making sure to say a firm bye to her, when she decided to snatch my earphone from my ear. My earphones have a wire, my hearing aid does not. She grabbed my hearing aid from my ear, which hurts when it's so rough and sudden, by the way. She grabbed her kid's hand and immediately began to run with my hearing aid. I followed her, shouting for her to stop and give it back, but now I couldn't hear anything she might have said back. When the woman got to the end of the platform, she turned and ran the other way. While I was thinking about whether to just put my arm in front of her, grab her, or honestly just push her down until she gave me my hearing aid back, she got past me and then went to my walking stick, which I left by the wall. She grabbed it and threw it on the rails. I could see her face and she was saying something to me, but I couldn't hear what she was saying. I shouted at her, swearing very loudly because she just threw the walking stick I paid a lot of money for onto the rails. And she was holding a hearing aid that would cost a few £100 to replace if she broke it. A nice man came to my aid and spoke to the entitled mother, but I have no idea what was said. Next thing I knew, someone who worked at the train station came to help. And thankfully, she spoke sign language so I could actually know what was happening. I explained what happened to the woman in sign language so the entitled mother couldn't interrupt, and the woman immediately helped me. She made the entitled mother give back my hearing aid, provided me with antibacterial wipes to clean it, and had someone retrieve my walking stick, which put an additional 10-minute delay on a train we were waiting for. Security removed the entitled mother, who was screaming and shouting the entire time, from the train station. The woman claimed she didn't know it was a hearing aid, which is beside the point because she still would have taken my personal property if it was actually my earphone, and said that I was probably lying about being deaf and disabled. So how was she supposed to know? The entitled mother received a lifetime ban from that train station, so if that's where she lives, she will have to drive to another town just to get the train. If not, then she'll never be able to get off at that stop and will have to get off at the one before or after. This happened a few weeks back and I was really hesitant to share it here, hoping that Karen doesn't recognize herself. Here it is. I was browsing in a shopping center with my autism service dog, Knox, as training. I was picking clothes and trying them on, hoping that at the end of the training I'd find something that suits my style. As I was entering another alternative clothes store, Karen tapped me on the shoulder. "You know that dogs aren't allowed in these stores, right?" Me, visibly confused. "I'm sorry. Are you deaf? I said that you need to leave." Me, as I point to Knox's vest showing the label and the program name that certified her. "Ma'am, this is a service dog." Karen cuts me off. "You're clearly not disabled, even less you're not autistic. You can talk. Now leave the store before I call security and get you banned." Me, barely holding my tears. "Excuse me, please." "No, I'm going to walk you to the exit to be sure that you and your dog are leaving." At this moment, Knox alerted me. I needed to sit down, but I couldn't. Everything was so loud and it seems the lights were getting even brighter. I started crying and Knox moved between my legs for comfort. Me sobbing and repeating, "Go away." Karen talking over me. "Oh, grow up." I continued sobbing while trying to talk. "My ID, autistic, no, verbal, scam, dog, trained, my ID, more." Her speech became more and more muffled as I got even more overwhelmed. Attempting to sit on the ground, Karen grabbed my arm. "Don't touch me. If we didn't have a crowd before, we definitely did now. A security guard appeared. I calmed down a bit, enough to understand speech. Security guard says, "What's happening?" "This person over here is faking. They have scammed the program to give them a service dog for their autism. My child will benefit from that dog more, as it really has autism and doesn't speak. I need that dog." As she was saying this, I felt a tug on Knox's leash, and I unclipped it from her collar. Now I was holding Knox by her harness, as she was sitting right in front of me, giving me gentle snuggles and kisses. "How dare you? Security guard, do something!" A security guard turned to me. "Sir, is that dog a service dog?" Me, still crying. "Yes." "They don't need it." "Shh. Do you have an ID for the dog, and can I have yours?" I tell him yes. I gave security guard the needed documents. They checked them and gave them back. I am not from the US or the UK. There is no such thing as owner-trained service dogs. Service dogs are trained by professional trainers and are free. There are requirements that need to be met, such as diagnosis and/or an interview with a medical team, lead, or therapist. Your documents are intact. You may go. "No, that's not fair. My kid needs that dog more than this adult." "Ma'am, I will ask you to return the leash to this gentleman and continue your day." "No, that is for my service dog that they are now holding." "Ma'am, that's theft. If you don't return the leash now, I'm afraid I'll have to call the police." Karen kept screaming that the dog was hers, so the security guard quickly called a police officer, who's always nearby around this place. Security guard had to prevent Karen from running and then fill in the officer. She was taken in the back of the blue car. The security guard gave me the leash back and escorted me to the restroom to make sure I was safe. I washed my face and went to the nearest bench to sit and calm down a bit more. Then I left. Thankfully, I never had the pleasure of seeing that Karen again, or ever hearing about her again. This is a story of my cousin who is the entitled parent in the story. Let's start with some backstory, okay? When I was 17, I met the man who will become my husband. He was 18, I became really close with his older sister, divorced, and I watched her son, who was 9, when I met him and 11 when this story takes place. He called me almost aunt, and I called him nearly nephew, and we had a great relationship. He always wanted to hang out with me, and I occasionally had him over to my parents' house for a sleepover when his mom needed a break or whatever. He was very into video games, so at one point I went out and bought a gaming system like his so he could play when he was over, and so I could practice and get better at his favorite games. I hate being schooled by a 10-year-old, right? My boyfriend was away at a university about 4 hours away, and I was at home going to community college and working almost full-time. My sister had moved out and gotten married, and my parents let me convert her bedroom into a sitting room for myself. I'd won a TV through a contest at work, and I moved my computer table/desk in there, and I got a second-hand couch from someone at work who was moving. The two rooms were connected by a bathroom, and I got a cheap dorm-type fridge for my birthday from my parents when I turned 18 to complete the room. It was a very cool setup. Alas, it was not meant to last. My cousin, Dad's brother's daughter, was getting divorced and needed a place for her and her 10-year-old son to stay. We moved all of my stuff into the unfinished basement. My dad put up some temporary walls and a door to delineate my room, and they moved in, the kid in my room and my cousin in my sister's room. I felt bad for the kid and tried to engage with him, but he wasn't anything like my nearly nephew. His parents were very religious and didn't let him watch much TV, play video games, or anything like that. I had some very G-rated games, no violence, that had come with my system, and his mom let him play those. He got hooked and would constantly go down to my room and want to play. Eventually, I moved the gaming system upstairs into a common area of the house so I could sleep in on weekends and not be constantly coming home to find him sitting on my bed playing the game. It meant that I had to give up my gaming time. I had become a bit of a gamer chick, but I did end up getting more sleep, and he seemed very happy. They were supposed to stay for 3 months, and that turned into 6, and then 9. They finally moved out just a few days short of their 11-month anniversary with us, on a Saturday. I was at work and then out with friends that night. The next day I slept late and decided to move some of my stuff upstairs.
I cleaned and then enlisted my dad for some of the heavy lifting. When I was almost done, I decided to hook up the TV and went down to grab a gaming system. And it was gone, along with a few of my games and both of my controllers. So I texted my cousin, "Do you guys have my gaming system?" "Yes." "Okay, but I didn't give it to you. I need it back. When is a good time for you to drop it off here?" "You haven't played with it in a month. My kid has been playing with it, so I figured you wouldn't miss it." "Understood, but I do miss it, and I want it back." "But the kid enjoys it so much, he even bought 2 games for it with his birthday money." "It's nice that he enjoys it. You should probably get him one of his own, but I still need mine back." "It's not very ladylike for a girl your age to be playing video games anyway." "It's not up to you to decide if I'm enough of a lady. It's not very ladylike to steal either, but here we are." "There's no need to be rude. I'm not going to allow you to take his video games away from him." "I'm not taking away his video games. You're returning my video games to me." "He never actually had a gaming system for me to take away. He was using mine. He shouldn't have taken it in the first place." "But he bought games for it. He used it all the time. As far as I'm concerned, you gave it to him. You never told us that you'd want it back. You're the one who's trying to steal here. From a child." "I didn't want him coming down to my room all the time, so I moved it upstairs to my dad's TV. How is that giving it to him?" "I'm not arguing anymore. I want my gaming system back." She stopped responding after that. It took a few weeks, more texts, a phone call from my dad to her, a phone call from my dad to his brother, and me fighting with my parents who just wanted to let her have it, but wouldn't buy me a new one. One controller was broken beyond repair, and the other never really worked right, but the system worked fine. My parents were angry with me for cutting her out of my life after that, but I kept telling them that as soon as she apologized, I'd forgive her. Because of the pandemic, I have been doing all of our grocery shopping via curbside pickup. I only go once a week on Monday after work, and if I forget something, we do is out until the next week. However, we'd have a house guest from out of state staying with us, and that has thrown off our shopping schedule. Our guest left yesterday and we had several errands to run today, including picking up my partner's car from the shop. We realized that there were a few things we needed to get us through until the next Monday. I decided to actually go into the store since there were only a few items, less than what curbside would do without a service fee. I got to the store actually remembering to bring my reusable shopping bag with me for a change. It's rather ugly, light teal colored with some dumb cartoon animals on it. In addition, it's kind of old. The clear coat on the outside is peeling in a few places. This makes it recognizable. Because I don't like to bury the bag with my groceries and have to unbury it at checkout, I place it folded over the side of the cart, half in and half out. I started my shopping. Occasionally, I needed to step away from the cart to look more closely at an item on a shelf, or if someone was standing too close to something I wanted, I'd leave the cart for a second, grab the item, and return. It's never for long. I got in the bread and cheese and started over to the produce section. I found the things I wanted, and as I headed for the spice aisle, I noticed that the bag was missing. Crap, I've dropped it, was what I was thinking. I started retracing my steps to see if I could find it on a floor somewhere, all the way back to the entrance, where I was sure I had it last. And nothing. Not that I was particularly attached to this bag, but I didn't want to have to go back out to the cart to get another one. I decided to finish the shopping, see if some employee might have picked it up, and if not, just leave my items loose in the cart and bag them in the car. As I turned the corner from the spice aisle, I saw a woman in a checkout line, early 30s, yoga pants and so on, with a suspiciously familiar bag draped over the side of her cart, exactly the way I was hanging mine. I looked at it closely and sure enough, it's my bag. Me glaring, "Oh, I see that you found my bag, but I must have dropped." "What? No, I didn't know that was your cart." I snatched the bag off her cart, verified it was mine, gave her another dirty look, difficult to do while wearing a mask, and went in search for the milk. I finished my shopping and the clerk at the checkout was a passing acquaintance. They asked, "Hey buddy, how was that earlier?" Can you believe it? That woman took my shopping bag off my cart when my back was turned. I just happened to see that she had it. Man, I hate people sometimes. No way, some people have real nerve. I completed the transaction and went home. Now as I sit here typing this, giddy with my self-righteous anger, it suddenly occurs to me that there is another explanation. And now I am feeling guilty. What if an employee found the bag but had legitimately fallen off my cart, picked it up and put it on an empty cart, hoping that it would be found by its owner? What if this woman needed the cart, saw the one that happened to have my bag on it available, and decided to use it, planning to give the bag to an employee at the checkout? That would make me a total jerk, one of the people I despise so much. Anyways, I'll never know for sure, and I think that's what bugs me most of all.